The journey of intelligence does not begin with knowledge, with degrees, or with accomplishments. It begins within. True intelligence is not measured by the books a woman has read or the awards she has earned. It is measured by the depth of her understanding of herself. Every thought she has, every emotion that rises within her, every impulse that moves her, she observes them all. She does not immediately act on anger, jealousy, or impatience. She does not allow herself to be swept away by fleeting desires or momentary frustrations. Instead, she cultivates a stillness within her mind, a clarity that allows her to witness the inner workings of her soul. She asks herself quietly, "Why do I feel this way? What is the source of this thought? Is this reaction truly mine, or is it a shadow of someone else's influence?" Self-awareness is the foundation upon which all other forms of intelligence are built. Without it, even the most educated mind can be blind to its own weaknesses. The highly intelligent woman recognizes her blind spots before they become obstacles. She does not pretend to be flawless. She does not hide behind masks of perfection or pretense. Instead, she turns her gaze inward, and in the quiet chambers of her mind, she meets herself honestly. She acknowledges her fears, her insecurities, and her patterns of self-sabotage, not to criticize herself, but to understand and to learn. She understands that every emotion, every reaction is a teacher if she allows it to be. Anger reveals her boundaries. Fear illuminates what she values most. Sadness teaches her compassion. Every feeling is a guide, and she listens attentively. This awareness is not passive. It is not a mere reflection or fleeting thought. It is a deliberate practice, a daily discipline. She sets aside time to observe her own mind, to question her impulses, to reflect on her choices. In conversations, she notices not only what she says, but why she says it. She pays attention to the subtle tensions in her body, the quick judgments that arise in her mind, the recurring patterns that echo through her life. She understands that intelligence without self-awareness is like a sword without a hand, sharp but useless. The sharpest strategies, the cleverest insights, and the deepest wisdom are only meaningful when they are rooted in the understanding of oneself. Highly intelligent women also recognize the influence of the external world on their inner state. They notice how certain people, situations, or environments trigger emotions within them that may not belong entirely to them. A harsh word from someone else, a small failure, or even a fleeting criticism. She observes the ripple it creates within her, and she discerns what is truly hers and what is the projection of someone else's energy. In this way, she maintains sovereignty over her mind. She does not allow the chaos of the world to dictate her peace. She cultivates a calm presence that is grounded in self-knowledge. A presence that does not bend to every passing wind, that is not tossed about by the waves of opinion or circumstance. Self-awareness also allows her to see the subtleties of her desires and ambitions. She questions, are these dreams my own, or have I been conditioned to want them? Are my goals born from genuine passion, or are they borrowed from expectation? She knows that pursuing a path without understanding her own motivations is a path destined for frustration. Her intelligence is reflected not only in knowing what she wants, but in knowing why she wants it. She examines the roots of her motivations with patience, peeling away layers of habit, societal pressure, and unconscious influence until only the pure desire remains, the desire that aligns with her values, her truth, and her authentic self. In relationships, self-awareness is perhaps the most powerful tool. She recognizes how her energy affects others, how her words can heal or harm, how her presence can inspire or intimidate. She does not rely on charm or manipulation because she understands that true connection arises naturally when one is honest with oneself. She notices when she is reacting from fear, from ego, or from past wounds. She adjusts not to control others, but to ensure that her actions are aligned with integrity and conscious choice. Every decision, every interaction, every word spoken is filtered through this lens of awareness. Her mind becomes a mirror, reflecting the inner truth of her being. She is aware of her limits, yet she does not see them as weaknesses. Instead, she sees them as the edges of her current understanding, invitations to learn and grow. She is aware of her strengths, but she does not allow them to become arrogance. She observes, she listens, she reflects, and she acts only when she has clarity. She knows that intelligence is not about rushing to solve every problem, but about discerning which problems are worth solving, which battles are worth engaging in, and which energies are best left untouched. Self-awareness also cultivates patience. She understands that change, both within herself and in the world around her, cannot be forced. Every transformation is a process, and she learns to wait without anxiety, to observe without judgment, and to act without compulsion. She sees the impermanence of emotions, the fleeting nature of conflict, and the subtle currents that shape her experiences. Through this, she develops a resilience that is not brittle but flexible, a strength that is not rigid but adaptable. Finally, self-awareness grants her the freedom to choose. Freedom from impulse, freedom from fear, freedom from external validation. She moves through life deliberately, knowing that every thought, every emotion, and every action carries weight. Her intelligence is not measured by what she knows, but by how deeply she understands herself and how skillfully she navigates life from this understanding. In every challenge, she asks herself, how do I respond? What is truly mine to carry? Where does my responsibility lie? Her mind is a sanctuary, and within it, she holds the power to discern, to reflect, and to act with clarity and purpose. Highly intelligent women understand that wisdom does not lie in immediate reaction. True intelligence is not measured by how quickly one responds, but by how deeply one perceives before acting. When faced with a situation, a comment, or a challenge, she does not rush to reply. She pauses, she breathes, she watches carefully. Every gesture, every word, every subtle movement of energy around her becomes information. She notices the tone of voice, the rhythm of speech, the tension in posture, the fleeting expressions that betray what is unsaid. She sees beyond the surface. She sees the currents beneath the waves. She understands that the world often communicates in whispers rather than shouts, in gestures rather than proclamations, in silence rather than noise. Observation is a skill, but for her, it is a discipline. It is cultivated with intention, practiced with patience, and refined with experience. She does not allow her mind to be clouded by haste, by anger, or by desire. She resists the pull of immediate gratification, the temptation to prove a point, or the instinct to react defensively. Instead, she watches. She notices how people behave when they think no one is looking, how they respond to small inconveniences, how they express themselves in moments of pressure. She reads the patterns, the consistencies, and the contradictions. Through observation, she gathers wisdom not only about others but also about herself. She sees how she reacts under pressure, how her emotions rise and fall, how her thoughts influence her actions. This skill allows her to navigate complex situations with a quiet authority. While others rush to speak, to judge, or to act, she maintains her center. She understands that impulsive reactions often carry consequences that are disproportionate to the moment. Words spoken in haste can wound. Actions taken without reflection can create ripples that extend far beyond the initial spark. She chooses observation over reaction, not out of fear, but out of respect for the truth of the moment. She knows that clarity emerges not from noise, but from stillness. Observation also grants her the ability to read intentions. She notices the subtleties that most overlook, the hesitation in a glance, the shadow of discomfort in a smile, the energy that lingers in the room. She discerns patterns that reveal authenticity and those that reveal pretense. She does not rely on assumptions or appearances. She relies on careful attention and patient watching. In this, she finds freedom from manipulation, for she sees the motives beneath actions before they can take root in her experience. She is aware that not every word is truth, not every gesture is genuine, and not every promise is sincere. By observing, she cultivates discernment, a quiet radar that guides her toward truth and away from deception. In her personal relationships, this habit of observation transforms connection into understanding. She listens not only to the words, but also to the spaces between them. She notices the energy of those around her, how moods shift subtly, and how unspoken thoughts reveal themselves in fleeting expressions. She is aware that true communication often resides not in what is said, but in what is not said. She observes without judgment, without impatience, allowing the other person to reveal themselves in their own time. Through this, she builds empathy that is rooted in reality rather than projection, connection that is grounded in presence rather than assumption. She also observes her own internal world with the same vigilance. She notices her impulses before they become actions. She observes the rise of irritation, jealousy, or defensiveness. She watches the tendencies of her own mind, the habits that repeat, the patterns that dictate behavior without conscious choice. By observing first, she gains the power to respond rather than react. She understands that reaction is often a reflection of the past or a projection of fear, while response arises from awareness and alignment with truth. Her inner observation allows her to navigate life with intention, to choose actions that are measured, thoughtful, and effective. Observation requires patience, and patience is the ally of intelligence. She does not seek to rush understanding, for she knows that insight deepens with time. She allows situations to unfold, people to reveal themselves, and the truth to emerge in its own rhythm. She does not force clarity. She cultivates conditions in which clarity naturally arises. By observing more than reacting, she preserves her energy, maintains her focus, and ensures that her actions are purposeful rather than reactive. In moments of conflict, this practice is especially powerful. While others may escalate tension through impulsive words or defensive gestures, she remains grounded. She watches the unfolding dynamics, noticing the emotions at play, the hidden agendas, the subtleties that escape notice. Her calm presence becomes a stabilizing force, diffusing chaos without needing to dominate it. She understands that control is not in force but in perception, that influence arises from clarity, not agitation. Observation also cultivates a profound humility. She sees the world as it is, not as she wishes it to be. She understands that every person carries their own story, every situation has layers beyond the obvious, and every action has consequences that extend beyond immediate perception. Through observation, she aligns herself with reality, gaining wisdom that is rooted in truth rather than assumption. Her intelligence shines quietly, not in loud declarations or dramatic gestures, but in the subtle mastery of awareness, perception, and measured action. Highly intelligent women understand that inner peace is not a luxury, it is a necessity. It is the foundation upon which every choice, every action, every relationship is built. They know that the world is full of noise, distraction, and disruption. Opinions are shouted, expectations imposed, and chaos is always ready to intrude. Yet, they do not allow themselves to be pulled into this turbulence. They cultivate a sanctuary within themselves, a place of stillness and clarity that remains untouched by the storms outside. This inner calm is not passive, it is an active, deliberate practice. It requires awareness, discipline, and courage. Protecting inner peace begins with awareness of what disturbs it. Highly intelligent women observe the energies that enter their space, the people, the words, the environments that carry tension, negativity, or unnecessary drama. They notice how certain interactions leave them feeling drained, frustrated, or anxious. They notice how repeated patterns, criticism, gossip, or pressure begin to erode their calm. This awareness is the first step toward protection, for one cannot safeguard what one does not recognize. By identifying the sources of imbalance, they gain the power to choose what enters their mind, heart, and environment. They also understand the subtle ways in which inner peace is threatened from within. Unchecked thoughts of resentment, self-doubt, fear, or regret can quietly undermine calm, even in the absence of external disturbances. They recognize that peace is not merely the absence of conflict, but the presence of harmony within. To maintain this harmony, they cultivate mental clarity. They observe their thoughts without attachment, allowing negative or distracting ideas to pass without giving them power. They do not feed the mind with unnecessary worry or overthinking. They understand that their inner energy is precious and that where they focus, it determines the quality of their experience. Boundaries become their shield. Highly intelligent women are vigilant about protecting their mental and emotional space. They do not overcommit to the demands of others at the expense of their own well-being. They recognize that saying no is not selfish, it is an act of preservation. They limit exposure to toxic people, conversations, and environments. They choose companions who uplift and inspire rather than those who drain and belittle. They distance themselves from gossip, drama, and manipulation, knowing that these energies do not belong in the space they have carefully cultivated within themselves. Every boundary set is an act of self-respect and a declaration that their peace is sacred. They also approach conflict with discernment. They do not allow provocation or disagreement to disturb their equilibrium. When challenged, criticized, or confronted, they respond from clarity rather than reactivity. They understand that reacting impulsively often amplifies discord, whereas a calm, measured response maintains integrity and preserves energy. They listen deeply, assess the situation, and act only when it aligns with their values and long-term vision. This does not mean avoidance of truth or compromise of principles. It means choosing the path that honors both the self and the situation without unnecessary turbulence. Rituals and practices that sustain peace are integral to their lives. Meditation, reflection, solitude, and mindful breathing are not optional, they are essential tools. They take time to recalibrate, to release accumulated tension, and to reconnect with the center of their being. In these quiet moments, they replenish their energy, gain perspective, and strengthen the foundation of calm upon which all action is based. They understand that peace is cultivated consistently, not obtained temporarily, and that small, daily acts of self-care are as important as major life decisions in maintaining inner stability. They are also aware of the power of choice in maintaining peace. Every interaction, every thought, every action offers an opportunity to either protect or disrupt inner harmony. Highly intelligent women choose carefully. They do not chase approval or validation from others because they understand that reliance on external recognition creates vulnerability to disappointment and disturbance. They choose gratitude over complaint, perspective over irritation, and wisdom over impulsiveness. Even in challenging circumstances, they find ways to remain centered, recognizing that calmness is not the absence of difficulty, but the presence of mastery over one's mind and heart. Protecting inner peace also extends to the energy they project into the world. Highly intelligent women understand that the mind is not separate from experience, that calmness attracts clarity, and that inner stability influences external interactions. They do not engage in unnecessary arguments, power struggles, or attempts to control others. They do not allow themselves to be manipulated by fear, jealousy, or envy. Instead, they act with integrity, speak with purpose, and walk through life guided by the quiet strength that comes from knowing themselves and honoring their inner boundaries. In essence, they treat their inner world as sacred territory. They are vigilant against forces that would disturb it, selective about what they allow in, and disciplined in maintaining balance. They know that peace is not given by circumstances. It is created and protected intentionally. Every moment spent in awareness, every decision made with intention, and every boundary honored strengthens this inner fortress. The world outside may be chaotic, unpredictable, and at times harsh, yet within this cultivated space, they remain grounded, clear, and unshaken. Highly intelligent women understand that life is rarely defined by single moments, fleeting impulses, or immediate gratification. True wisdom is found not in reacting to what feels urgent in the present, but in seeing beyond the moment, envisioning the ripple effects of decisions that stretch into the future. They recognize that emotions are powerful, but if they are allowed to dictate every choice, they often lead to short-sighted decisions that bring temporary satisfaction but long-term regret. Every feeling, whether joy, anger, frustration, or desire, is acknowledged, yet it does not become the sole compass guiding their actions. Thinking long-term requires discipline. It demands that one step back from the intensity of immediate experience and observe it with clarity. Highly intelligent women cultivate the ability to pause before reacting. When faced with a challenge, conflict, or opportunity, they do not rush to judgment. They ask themselves questions that others may neglect. What consequences will this action carry weeks, months, or years from now? Will this choice align with my values and vision for my life? Am I acting from a fleeting emotion or from a place of deliberate intention? In this way, they navigate life with patience, understanding that impulsive reactions may satisfy a momentary desire but rarely honor the deeper currents of their journey. Emotions are not ignored, they are understood and integrated. Highly intelligent women recognize that emotions are signals, not instructions. Anger may highlight an injustice, fear may illuminate a boundary, and excitement may reveal a path toward growth. They observe these feelings, allow them to surface, and then examine them through the lens of long-term thinking. They ask, how can this emotion inform my decision without controlling it? How can I honor my feelings while still acting in alignment with my future vision? By separating reaction from reflection, they transform raw emotion into a tool for insight rather than a force that governs them. This long-term perspective extends to relationships, career, and personal growth. In relationships, they resist the temptation to act impulsively out of jealousy, insecurity, or desire for immediate approval. They do not demand answers in the heat of a moment or force commitment out of fear of loss. Instead, they observe patterns, evaluate character, and make choices that honor both their heart and their long-term well-being. They understand that love, trust, and respect are cultivated over time, and that patience often yields outcomes far more profound than impulsive action. In career and personal endeavors, highly intelligent women weigh decisions not just by what feels rewarding today, but by the impact it will have on the trajectory of their life. They understand that shortcuts, reactive decisions, and the pursuit of instant gratification often create setbacks disguised as wins. They consider the sustainability of opportunities, the alignment with their vision, and the integrity of the path they choose. They invest in skills, knowledge, and experiences that compound over time, understanding that true success is rarely immediate but grows steadily with deliberate effort. They also guard against the influence of societal pressure and emotional manipulation. They are aware that external voices, whether criticism, expectation, or persuasion, often appeal to immediate emotion, coaxing reactions that serve others' agendas rather than their own. By thinking long-term, they create a mental space where the noise of the moment does not overwhelm discernment. They assess each situation from a broader perspective, asking, will this action serve my growth, my values, and my vision months or years from now? They understand that emotional impulses can be persuasive and seductive, but clarity arises when they measure every choice against the scale of the future. Highly intelligent women cultivate foresight, imagining the potential consequences of actions before they commit to them. They envision not only the possible rewards, but also the risks, the challenges, and the changes that may come as a result of their choices. This foresight allows them to navigate complexity with grace. When others react from anger, fear, or frustration, they respond from understanding, planning, and measured action. They recognize that every decision is a seed planted in the soil of time, and the quality of the harvest depends on the care, patience, and wisdom applied at the moment of planting. In moments of temptation or impulse, they practice restraint. They do not dismiss the pull of desire or curiosity, but they examine it carefully. They ask, will acting now strengthen or weaken my long-term goals? Will it bring temporary relief at the expense of deeper growth? By pausing and reflecting, they transform impulsive reactions into conscious choices that honor both the present moment and the future trajectory of their life. This ability to delay immediate gratification in service of long-term vision is a hallmark of profound intelligence and emotional mastery. Thinking long-term also allows them to maintain balance amidst chaos. Life is unpredictable, and circumstances often challenge the best laid plans. Yet, highly intelligent women remain anchored in their vision, not swayed by temporary disruptions or emotional turbulence. They see setbacks as lessons, not failures, delays as opportunities for recalibration, conflict as a signal to adjust strategy rather than a reason for panic. By keeping their eyes on the long horizon, they preserve clarity, reduce unnecessary stress, and create space for deliberate, aligned action rather than reactive decisions driven by immediate emotional pressure. Highly intelligent women understand that power is not always found in words, and wisdom is not always measured by who can speak the loudest. They know that silence carries weight, that quiet presence communicates more than argument, and that restraint often commands respect where forceful speech fails. In a world that often prizes reaction over reflection, they cultivate the discipline to observe, listen, and act with intention rather than to react in haste to prove themselves right. They understand that words spoken without clarity or purpose can fracture relationships, stir unnecessary conflict, and deplete energy, while silence, when held wisely, can preserve dignity, maintain control, and convey unspoken authority. Choosing silence over argument is not born from passivity or avoidance, it is born from discernment. They recognize the futility of engaging with those who are unwilling or incapable of understanding. They know that some discussions are designed not to reach truth but to feed ego, to provoke, or to manipulate. In these moments, they do not feel compelled to defend themselves or assert dominance. They do not seek to win the approval of others or the satisfaction of proving a point. Instead, they allow the stillness of their mind to hold the space, observing the conversation without losing equilibrium. In this restraint, they preserve their energy, maintain clarity, and protect the integrity of their inner world. Silence also allows them to think more deeply before responding. When words are spoken impulsively, they carry the risk of misrepresentation, regret, or escalation. By pausing, they create space to consider the consequences of their speech, to weigh intention against impact, and to ensure that their response aligns with their values and long-term goals. They understand that intelligence is not in speaking first, but in speaking rightly, and sometimes the right choice is to speak only when necessary or to remain silent entirely. They recognize that the absence of words does not imply weakness. On the contrary, it often signals strength, confidence, and self-control that is invisible to the untrained eye. Observation becomes their ally in silence. While others rush to fill the air with rebuttals, arguments, or defenses, they watch and listen. They notice not only what is said, but what is left unsaid, the hesitation in tone, the flicker of emotion in expression, the patterns of behavior that reveal deeper truths. Through this attentive observation, they gather insights that impulsive reactions would miss. Silence sharpens perception. It allows them to understand motives, discern intentions, and navigate complex dynamics with strategic clarity. Every quiet moment becomes a tool for intelligence rather than an absence of action. In relationships, valuing silence over proving a point creates a magnetic presence. People sense a depth that cannot be matched by words alone. Highly intelligent women do not feel compelled to justify themselves, explain their choices repeatedly, or defend their worth to those who are not receptive. They allow their actions, consistency, and integrity to communicate their truth. Those who truly understand will perceive it. Those who do not are revealed without the need for confrontation. Silence becomes a filter, naturally distinguishing between those who value connection and those who seek control. And it ensures that energy is invested wisely rather than scattered on proving a point that may never need proving. Silence also cultivates inner power. Every moment spent refraining from unnecessary argument is a moment of mastery over the ego. Highly intelligent women understand that the need to prove oneself often arises from insecurity, fear, or the desire for validation. By resisting this impulse, they strengthen their autonomy and self-respect. They understand that their value is not determined by external acknowledgement or agreement, but by their alignment with truth, principles, and integrity. In this way, silence is not empty, it is filled with purpose, discernment, and conscious restraint. Furthermore, silence allows for reflection and growth. When one constantly seeks to assert correctness, energy is consumed in battles that may have little relevance to personal progress. By choosing quiet observation, they maintain space for introspection, learning, and strategic action. They reflect on their own role, their own contributions, and the patterns they wish to cultivate or release. Every situation becomes an opportunity to deepen understanding rather than a platform for ego-driven confrontation. In this manner, silence is not passive but profoundly active, a deliberate engagement with life that prioritizes wisdom over argument, clarity over chaos, and presence over performance. Highly intelligent women also recognize that words carry consequences. Once spoken, they cannot be taken back. An impulsive speech often creates friction that lingers longer than intended. In contrast, silence, when employed with discernment, creates space for resolution, understanding, and alignment. It allows time for emotions to settle, for perspectives to shift, and for clarity to emerge naturally. They do not need to dominate the narrative or control the perception of others because they understand that truth, integrity, and consistent action communicate far more than arguments ever could. In essence, valuing silence over proving a point is a practice of mastery over mind, emotions, and energy. It is a practice of discernment, patience, and subtle influence. It is a recognition that life is not measured by winning debates, asserting superiority, or proving correctness, but by the ability to maintain clarity, preserve peace, and act in alignment with one's higher vision. Words are tools, not weapons, and their power is amplified when used deliberately, sparingly, and purposefully. In silence, highly intelligent women find control, insight, and freedom from the trivialities that so often entangle the untrained mind. Highly intelligent women understand that the pursuit of approval is fleeting, while the pursuit of growth endures. They know that seeking validation from others is a trap that feeds insecurity, drains energy, and diverts focus from true self-mastery. Every compliment received, every acknowledgement sought, every external measure of worth may feel satisfying in the moment, but it is temporary, fragile, and dependent on the shifting tides of opinion. In contrast, investing in personal growth, the development of skills, character, wisdom, and emotional intelligence yields a foundation that cannot be shaken by praise or criticism, by admiration or indifference. They understand that true fulfillment comes from expansion, not affirmation. This mindset requires courage, Highly intelligent women are willing to step away from the familiar comforts of approval and the subtle, yet persistent, pressures of societal expectation. They do not chase likes, compliments, or recognition because they are already aligned with an inner standard of value that is independent of others. They understand that growth is often uncomfortable, requiring effort, persistence, and sometimes solitude. Challenges, failures, and even criticism are not threats to be feared but opportunities to deepen understanding and strengthen resilience. They do not allow external judgments to dictate their actions or distort their sense of self-worth, for they know that validation is fleeting while growth is enduring. Investing in growth begins with awareness and reflection. They regularly examine their habits, their thoughts, and their patterns of behavior. They ask themselves difficult questions. Am I learning from this experience? Does this challenge align with my long-term vision? Am I choosing this path because it expands me or because it earns the approval of others? Through this continual reflection, they make conscious choices that prioritize learning, self-improvement, and development over temporary recognition. They understand that each step taken toward personal mastery carries more weight than the applause of a crowd or the fleeting admiration of peers. Highly intelligent women also recognize the subtle ways in which the desire for validation can influence relationships. They do not mold themselves to fit expectations, nor do they perform or comply simply to gain approval. They are careful to remain authentic, even when authenticity risks misunderstanding, disapproval, or rejection. In doing so, they attract connections that are genuine, grounded, and mutually enriching, while naturally filtering out relationships that rely on superficial admiration rather than true alignment. They understand that the energy expended on seeking acceptance could be redirected toward developing wisdom, resilience, and capability, qualities that create lasting respect and admiration without the need to chase it. Growth is cultivated through deliberate action. Highly intelligent women dedicate themselves to learning, not for recognition, but for mastery. They invest in experiences, study, and self-discipline that expand the mind, strengthen character, and broaden perspective. They read, practice, reflect, and challenge themselves beyond comfort zones. They understand that transformation rarely comes from external accolades, but from consistent, focused effort to refine mind, body, and spirit. In prioritizing this path, they create a life of competence, influence, and integrity that speaks for itself, requiring no artificial reinforcement through approval or praise. They also understand the impermanence of opinion. People's judgments are influenced by their own experiences, biases, and limitations. What is celebrated today may be dismissed tomorrow, and what is ignored may become admired only after time reveals its value. Highly intelligent women do not tether their sense of self to this shifting landscape. They focus instead on cultivating enduring skills, wisdom, and resilience. They understand that true impact is measured not by the immediate applause of others, but by the sustained growth, transformation, and contribution that ripples quietly but powerfully through life. Investing in growth instead of validation also requires emotional discipline. It demands that they sit with discomfort, navigate self-doubt, and confront challenges without needing reassurance from outside. They understand that inner confidence cannot be borrowed. It must be built from experience, reflection, and consistent effort. Each failure is an opportunity to learn, each criticism a mirror to reflect upon, and each obstacle a test of resilience. In this way, they cultivate a strength that is quiet yet unshakable, a wisdom that cannot be undermined by fleeting approval, and a presence that commands respect naturally rather than through performance. Highly intelligent women also recognize that growth is holistic. It is not limited to professional achievement, social status, or material success. It encompasses emotional maturity, mental clarity, physical well-being, ethical integrity, and spiritual understanding. They invest in all aspects of themselves, knowing that imbalance in one area can undermine progress in another. Validation often encourages superficiality, comparison, or shortcuts, whereas growth demands authenticity, patience, and sustained effort. By orienting their energy toward growth, they ensure that their life is aligned with values, purpose, and vision rather than external approval or fleeting praise. Ultimately, choosing growth over validation liberates the mind and spirit. It allows them to pursue challenges fearlessly, embrace learning without shame, and engage fully with life without fear of judgment. They understand that external recognition is secondary to internal mastery, that fulfillment arises from expansion rather than applause, and that their value is determined not by who notices them, but by the depth of their understanding, skill, and integrity,